Welcome to the virtual Red Bench, everybody. I'm Abby. I'm the director here at the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum. Tonight, we are celebrating 100 years of ski jumping in Vermont. Harrisville Ski Jump in Brattleboro celebrates their centennial this February. Their centennial committee is busy planning the festivities, and the museum certainly plans to be there. The event will take place the weekend of February 19th, and if you are interested in going, you can visit the Harrisville website for more information. The Red Bench series is complimentary, but we do request that you make a $10 donation if you're able. We are a nonprofit and we rely on your generosity to receive the funding we need to keep pushing forward. Every little bit counts and truly has a large impact on our success. Darn Tough is generously providing socks for us to raffle off. Everyone that donates at least $10 in support of this Red Bench is entered. The more you donate, the more entries you receive. I will draw those winners tomorrow, so please make those donations tonight for your chance to win. Also supporting this series are our Red Bench series sponsors. I want to thank our silver sponsor, RK Miles, our bronze sponsors, AJ Ski and Sports and Sisler Builders, and our media sponsor, Vermont Ski and Ride. Without their support, this series certainly wouldn't be possible. Joining us tonight is a talented and knowledgeable panel with deep roots at Harrisville, and moderating tonight's discussion is Peter Graves. Peter is a longtime Olympic broadcaster, coach, museum board member, and no stranger to the Red Bench. Peter will introduce our panel, and he'll be taking audience questions at the end of the discussion. At the bottom of your screens, there is a Q&A box, so type your questions in that and not the chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. Thank you all for being here. And Peter, you can take it away.
Well, thank you so very much, Abby. I appreciate that, and welcome everybody. We're delighted to have you with us, a special program on a very special place and a very special event. That is Brattleboro, Vermont, where this year they will be celebrating 100 years of ski jumping. And we're going to talk to some of the people that make it happen today. We've got great guests with us. We have Dana Sprague, a native of Brattleboro. He has been at every Harrisville event since 1967, and he is the historian of the club. Dana, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, we have Todd Einig with us. When it comes to getting the hill ready, he is the chief of competition and also the director of Harrisville Junior program, which is really flourishing. So, Todd, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks, Peter.
And finally, a Brattleboro native is Spencer Knickerbocker with us today. He is a former member of the U.S. Nordic Combined Team in their national training group and is now the executive director of the Marlborough Nordic Ski Club, which he is going to talk to us about tonight. So welcome everybody, and let's get down to business, all right, and talk ski jumping. Dana Sprague, we'll start it off with you. Not many traditions in sport really go back 100 years. It is quite extraordinary and enormous amount of history. Harrisville hosting so many events, including Olympic trials, many national events. So Dana, we'll go to you first. And when you look back at the lore of Harrisville, tell me some of the jumpers and the famous people that were there over the years.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Birger Ruud. He was world champion. In 1938, we had the national championship at Harrisville, and he was the guy to beat. And he won it all. And so he was national champion in 1938 at Harrisville, but he was also world champion. So he's one of the more famous. Espen Bredesen was there. Our own Mike Holland from Norwich, Vermont, who was a world record holder at one time. He won Harrisville one year, along with his brothers, Jim and Joe have jumped Harris. And then people like Jeff Hastings, who you've worked with, and Chris Hastings, who you've worked with jumping and announcing, famous U.S. jumpers. But there's been many, too many we always have Europeans every year, and that goes way back to the beginning. First jump ever, Europeans. Mezzi Barber, Brattleboro's greatest jumper ever, was very close to the Norwegians and even trained in Norway at one point.
Yeah.
And he is the top Brattleboro jumper ever. And we have some good ones. So.
And I think back to
but lots of history.
Think back to the era of the Tokel brothers, Torger, who tragically lost his life at the end among the final days of World War II with the 10th Mountain Division. And of course, his brother Art Tokel, the Tokel name was very famous in ski jumping.
Yeah, the two Tokels and also Art Devlin. Torgel was the first person to retire the trophy, which means winning it 3 times. And he did that right before going to war. And then his brother won it later on. And Art Devlin, who won it more than anybody else, he had two wins on the trophy when Art Tokel won it, and he had to start over. And he did, and he won 3 more. So he won 5 times at Harrisville. And
Wow.
Those 2 Tokels with Art Devlin and Mezzi Barber were all close friends too. It was a friendly competition, and every jump for about 10 years, one of those 4 people would win. And it went on and on. And Art Tokel, up until about, I don't know, 10 years ago, was at Harrisville every year watching, coaching.
Yes.
And now his son's involved. So
Well,
great history.
well, I'm going to get back to you with more history and more memories of Harrisville. Well, let's go to Todd now for a minute. Todd, as the chief of competition, you have a very big job. Tell me maybe some of the things that go into getting Harrisville ready.
Yeah, so for the chief of competition job, it's kind of like the general manager job. You're involved in, I work closely with Jason Evans, who's the chief of hill, who actually prepares the hill. He is the head of the snowmaking. Him and a crew, people sit out there for 3 or 4 days on end and make snow. He arranges getting the snowcat from Mount Snow, who's a gracious sponsor. He's, snows the track and gets that all set. So I work with him on that. I work with European coaches. Paul Nasuda, who's also on our committee, has some connections over in Europe. So I work with those folks, Slovenia and Austria usually, and some other countries to get athletes and make this really an international competition. And then I work with the organizers and the coaches across the country and talk to them about who they have at this level of ski jumping, who they're prepared to bring, how many jumpers, and then it's everything encompassed. And I work with Karen Zolonakis, who needs to know how many people are coming so she can get the rooms ready at the hotel. So it's I kind of help organize a lot of those aspects. And then I run the competition during Saturday and Sunday. So I'm up in the judges booth. I'm working with the technical director, who for many years has been Art Tokel, Jr., and Jay Rand have been there. And then the judges, I'm working with all of the judges, coordinating who's going to come to judge our competition. So a lot of things involved, a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of organizing, but it's fun. It's an aspect of ski jumping that I wasn't aware of. Being a ski jumper, I never really thought about those things. I just thought about getting up to the top of the hill and getting down as far as I could. So it's been an interesting transformation for me, going from athlete to official.
I didn't realize that you had so many administrative duties. So that's really interesting. You really have your finger on the pulse of the event.
I try to, yep.
Yeah.
Those folks that I'm working with, though, they're actually the ones doing all the work. I mean, Karen Zolonakis works her butt off, making sure that we have rooms available for all the jumpers and athletes and coaches. A place that we can have a banquet. Everybody else is doing those functions. I'm just kind of aware of what's going on, and if anybody needs any input from me, I try and get it to them as efficiently as possible so that we can make arrangements.
All right. Well, more questions for you coming up in a minute as we celebrate 100-year legacy of Harrisville ski jump this year. Fantastic. Spencer Knickerbocker joins us. He is the executive director of the Marlboro Nordic Ski Club, also a Harrisville ski jumping committee member. Grew up in Brattleboro, and I must say, his uncles are Jim and Joe Galanis, both famed Olympic skiers in their own right. And Spencer, you grew up with the sport and you live it. You were a high-level athlete. Tell us a little bit, first of all, about the Marlboro program, because there's a connection with Harrisville there, Spencer.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me, Peter. And
You're
I should also
welcome.
say my role on the committee is the chief of competition for the Nordic combined portion of Harrisville, which has been something that the Harrisville organizing committee has been investing in the past few years. And for those that don't know, Nordic Combined is combining ski jumping, which is the competition Harrisville hosts, with cross-country skiing. And it's been really wonderful being involved in that and supporting USA Nordic and their circuit, the US Cup, and being one of the stops for the Nordic Combined US Cup. So I'm really pleased to be involved with that. And my involvement with the Marlboro Nordic Ski Club is so it's a nonprofit organization I started about a year and a half ago. We're basically a brand new Nordic center up in Marlboro, Vermont, on the former Marlboro College campus. And we are the host venue for the Nordic combined portion of Harrisville, the competition every February. The goal of that program is to increase local participation for all ages, but I think one of the highlights is our Bill Koch Youth Ski League. One of our board members is actually Lee Todd, who started the Bill Koch Youth Ski League way back when. And last year was our first year, and we had over 40 kids participating in that. So the goal is growing healthy participation and, you know, learning the beauty of the lifelong sport of cross-country skiing. Connected with Harrisville, cross-country skiing is a really great way to be involved in, or to get involved in ski jumping, because you learn a lot of the same skills. Your heel is not attached to the skis. I think one of the funnest parts for the kids and myself of every practice is we have a little ski jump. And the kids love going off of it. And the great part about that is it kind of tricks them into skiing up a hill first so they can earn their jumps. And the goal of the program, you know, I started it thinking, how do we feed kids into the jumping program? And I think a great way is through cross-country skiing, because they learn those skills, and we can say, hey, if you like going off that little jump, we have a little slightly larger jump down in Brattleboro at Memorial Park that Todd got rebuilt and has really spearheaded that program the past few years. So I think Nordic is alive and well in Southern Vermont, and it's really, you know, hopeful. And we couldn't do it without the support of an event like Harrisville. You know, Harrisville draws huge crowds and just does a really amazing job of connecting a lot more people to the sport.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So after the hill was rebuilt, and I want to go back to Todd in a minute, but stay with Spencer at this moment. You had the honor of being the first jumper off. Tell me about that. That must have been very, very exciting. And I suppose you probably had a very good jump. You were psyched up to do it, but what was that like?
Oh, that is probably one of the most vivid jumps ever of the thousands of jumps I've been fortunate enough to take. Yeah, you know, I started jumping in Brattleboro under the guise of Dana Sprague in 2004. The last year that Harrisville ran on the old hill was 2005. So it was a 4-year hiatus. And, you know, part of me was not really sure I was going to ever be able to jump at Harrisville. But the committee really pulled off getting that jump rebuilt. And early in that winter, I had, you know, pitched it to them that I would like to be the first one off. I had been jumping Olympic-sized jumps for a couple of years. You know, I wasn't very good. I was 16 years old. But I got the go ahead, and I remember going over there the day before the hill, was open to jumpers and kind of visualizing what was going to happen. And, you know, I like any jump, anytime you jump a new hill, you got to go into it with the same attitude. And that's just working on the fundamentals of what you're trying to do. But, you know, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. You know, when you take a jump on a brand new Olympic sized hill, you're trusting the engineer who designed it and trusting that you made the right choice in which gate to start from. But I had a lot of support and a lot of encouragement, and it was really cool. And there's nothing so special for me as jumping at Harrisville. And I've been really fortunate to jump at a lot of places around the world, but Harrisville has a very, very special place in my heart.
Yeah, well, in all of ours, indeed. To Dana, when Spencer talks about the crowds cheering him on, I've seen a lot of old pictures from your photo collection, which is wonderful. And some of the crowds in the earlier days were enormous. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, Harrisville has always had good crowds. It's the second biggest jump for fans in the country. We draw even more than Lake Placid do for their events. So it's a crowd pleaser. The jumpers love to come because the crowd really gets into it with their cowbells and all that sort of thing. And it's a loud crowd and they have fun. They're in front of the beer tent. They're in the crowd. Not many people stay in their cars. One thing unique to Harrisville is you can walk up the side of the hill and you can hear the jumpers and see them right there. A lot of places don't let you do that, but at Brattleboro you can do that. You've always been able to do that. So that's kind of unique. The thing that's unique to Brattleboro is the hill is built into the condor of the mountain. It's not a big trestle that stands up that you're going to see from 20 miles away, but as you come around the corner, Fred Harris knew what he was doing. He found a piece of land in Brattleboro, less than a mile from Main Street, and he did it right. He built it right in. So on a windy day, Harrisville very seldom gets affected by the wind. Really nice design. But as far as the crowds, I kept track of records going back to the beginning, and the 40s and the 50s. 1951 was a national championship, 10,000 people at the jump that year, and we hit 10,000 a couple times. Now we average about 5,000, and it's probably enough because it fills the wrong. Anybody that wants to come will get a spot, but yeah, over the years, the low point was in the 80s when we had a couple years with not much snow, and it got down and not too many poor junior jumping in Vermont. We didn't have that many junior jumpers. All that's coming back, and the crowds just get bigger and bigger every year. So it's a great crowd. And as far as nationally, like I said, it's the second biggest crowd in the country for a jump. So Todd mentioned was Jay Rand, and I'll tell you, that's a 3-generation family of jumping, and that's not unusual to have a couple generations. A lot of times, even the kids who are jumping now, their parents jumped, and that's what carries this on. The parents of the past jumpers supporting what's going on now, and it's been huge. It's just it's connecting generations is very important, and there's people I see that weekend that I see one weekend a year, and they shape tradition. And to have it for 100 years, you know that there's been some strong
All right. Well, we'll go on. And Todd, let me ask you, the old hill, and maybe I'll back up for just a second and mention Fred Harris, for whom this was named. He was a visionary. Started the Dartmouth Outing Club about 1909. As Dana Sprague mentioned, he picked out a perfect spot for the hill. And there was great effort made to rebuild this hill. And so tell me a little bit about, I mean, when you make a new hill, what are some of the factors that are different from the old jump?
Yeah, so the old jump was designed, and I'm not sure who did it. It was kind of built probably by some local folks. It wasn't built to many specifications, if there were specifications, but
yeah,
you know, it was a functional Olympic size ski jump. So going from that to the current FIS regulated, FIS homologated jumping hill was really quite something, and it took a lot of engineering. It took Rex Bell's brother helped design it. Rex Bell's the one of the chair people and president or leader of USA Nordic. Ron Bell is an engineer locally. He helped design it and designed it to FIS specifications so that we could host FIS level competitions here at Harrisville, which is huge. It's huge for the sport of ski jumping here in the United States. It helps create some opportunities for some kids that might not have the opportunity to go to Europe and ski FIS competitions. So we're really proud of that. So we had, you know, engineering, we had input from folks in Europe about how to engineer the jump, you know, everywhere, everything from the specifications from FIS to, you know, what materials to use to, you know, contour of the landing hill, outrun and all that was very meticulously put together by engineers and input all over the world. And the committee did a fantastic job finding sponsors to gather the money, the incredible amount of money that it took to make that happen. It's really amazing what happened in that transition from 2005 to 2009 when we rebuilt the hill.
Todd, so I'm guessing with different engineering, they're great jumpers now can probably jump a lot further than they did in the old days. So, I mean, you have hill records, which seem to change almost every year now.
Yeah, current hill record at 104 meters, I think is the furthest anybody's gone on that hill ever. And Dana, our historian, can probably look at some of the hill records from past and prior to the hill being rebuilt. You know, Dana, I don't know if you have the list there, but records prior to 2005, I think I don't even know that there were 100 meters.
Dana, can you speak to that for a second?
Yeah. Well, the first year in 1922, on the very first jump, a Dartmouth College student named John Carlton went 150 feet, and that was the longest jump on the day. Later that year, we had another jump, and a guy named Bing Anderson went 158.5 feet. So over the years, it's climbed up, and in 1995, it went to 304 for the first time as a hill record over 300 feet. So now it's 341. So the hill has changed about 8 times. And after the first year, after the success Fred Harris had in 1922, he decided to tear down the trestle, which looked like a tree fort, by the way, and put up a really rugged one. And things went so well in 1923 that we were awarded the national championship for 1924, only in our 3rd year. And then after that, we had it 5 more times, national champion. So there's been lots of improvements. In the 80s, they dug down the hill. Dana Zelenakis was involved with that. They put in snowmaking and dug the hill and made it about, I don't know, 20 feet, 30 feet longer. But over 100 years, it started as a 65-meter jump, and now it's a 98-meter jump. So you can see what's happened over the years. In the new construction, when they built the steel in-run, they moved it back further, back into the woods. So the takeoff is maybe 20 or 30 feet back further than the original. And that made for a longer landing. They built the knoll up and they went down. And so constant improvements over the 100 years. Every year something gets better and safer. And, you know, the jumpers are better, the coaching's better, the equipment's better. You know, ever since the V formation, things have sort of taken off. And we talk about that a lot in our new book about how style has changed in ski jumping. And there's been 6 major style changes over the 100 years. So, so you have to buy the book. So,
and speaking of the book, can you hold it up for us? This is a great accomplishment. There it is. This is going to be coming out soon. That's wonderful.
And that picture on the front's from the 1924 National Championship. And the one on the back is from a couple of years ago after the rebuild. You can see how the styles changed.
Wow. Dana,
it's a lot
how can people get the book when it comes out?
So what's going to happen in about a week or two, you go to the harrisvilleskijump.com, the website, and you'll be able to pre-order to make sure you get one. They're doing a limited amount. It's going to be available in bookstores around the state. But if you want to make sure you get one, pre-order. We're looking at about $28. We're not making any money on it at all. We want people to have it. We want people to know the history. And so, yeah, a lot of different ways. And it'll be sold at the jump, too, if we have any left over, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's a big undertaking. Congratulations
on that. A lot
on
of fact-checking. Thank you. Yeah, we started in March. I picked out the photos. And it got narrowed down and narrowed down and narrowed down. They started with about 300 photos. And I think there's going to be almost 200 photos in the book. We've discovered some new photos. We've talked to some families that had photographs. The fact checking was very important to me. I want to make sure the history is right. And I had 2 people check me after I checked it. So it was a lot of fun. We worked on it every single day, all summer. So. Pretty excited.
That's great. So to Spencer, you know, it's interesting. And I want to ask you about kind of the vibe of Harrisville. The crowd is great. As Dana said, they ring the cowbells and they're loud and wonderful, a great atmosphere. When I have traveled overseas to Slovenia and things like Austria, Germany, people, I'll say, oh, yes, my home hill is Harris Hill, and they know about it. And some of that has certainly got to be that over the years with this tradition, with Europeans coming over, a lot of people know Harris Hill. And my feeling is, from talking to the Europeans, they've always had a great time, Spencer. So tell me a little bit about the vibe, what makes it special.
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. And, you know, just to start, I think Harrisville has touched a lot of ski jumpers around the world. And, you know, in ski jumping, as you know, and a lot of us know, there's tiers. So, you know, World Cup ski jumping, the cream of the crop, the biggest events in the world, those events draw big crowds. They're televised. I think what's unique about Harrisville is it's not a World Cup. It's a national competition that brings in the best jumpers from the United States. And I think what makes it special is it has that vibe of a World Cup. You know, there's the announcing, your voice, for example, brings so much energy to that bowl over there on Cedar Street, and the crowd. And, you know, the great thing about Brattleboro is it's close to downtown, but it's also close to Boston and New York. We get so much traffic for that event from people all around the Northeast. So it really draws in this crowd that's just excited to see the original extreme sport and see athletes jumping, 300 plus feet. you know, I've been fortunate that I've gotten to compete and jump around the world and the US, and there's just nothing quite like jumping at Harrisville. You know, I think it all comes back to the crowd and the atmosphere that happens there. And being a committee member now, you know, like Todd said, when I was an athlete, I never knew what went into producing an event like that. And the amount of community support that goes into this event from the committee, which is all volunteer, and then all of these donors, all of the people that volunteer time, all the hill markers that contribute to this, you know, it's just, it's really quite amazing. And as an athlete, you know, you might not recognize all those small pieces that form into this big thing, but that's what the energy is. It's people that are just excited to be out there enjoying winter and enjoying what these athletes can do, and it's close to home, so it's, you know, it's just really cool.
Yeah, well, it certainly is well known around the world. We will in a little bit take questions from you, but I want to continue on. Todd, you had mentioned snowmaking. Maybe in the old days they didn't need it and they didn't have it. It's an era too, but the snowmaking aspect is vital, not only to Harrisville, but everywhere else. But tell me a little bit about the snowmaking effort to ensure that we have a tournament.
Yeah, well, not only weather-wise these days, I mean, you know, second, third week of February sometimes can be a bit warm. And we really have to calculate and watch the weather to make sure that we make snow for 3 or 4 days, enough snow that we have enough to last for the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's very important. And Jason Evans spearheads that. He's our chief of Hill. And he has a group of folks that come and, you know, making it at night because the temperatures are colder at night. So they're out there from, you know, 5 o'clock in the evening to, you know, till the break of dawn, making piles of snow. And
do you have any idea how much they make? I don't know if you can measure that. No, it's big piles.
The piles that go down the center of the hill, they put the guns and just make piles because the groomer comes and spreads it all out, makes it all nice and pretty. But I mean, the piles are 6-8 feet tall, up and down the hill. So it's just an amazing amount of snow. I couldn't put a cubic foot number on that. It's just a lot.
Yeah, indeed.
And when in actuality, when it comes to regulations, when we host Fist Cup tournaments, they actually require you to have man-made snow.
Right.
Even if you have enough natural snow, they want man-made snow because it sets up better, it creates a better surface, and it's actually safer for the athletes because there's no, at that point, it sets up harder, so there's no pockets or anything like that. It's really a better surface all around and a safer surface.
Interesting. Dana, you wanted to say something, I think.
I think Jason likes a 4-foot base before we start the weekend because we can lose a foot a day with the warm weather. So we start off with a 4-foot base of snow. So that's how much they make. Wow.
Interesting. Dana, do you have a favorite memory or a favorite historical bit that really moves you?
Well, I guess I have a lot of them, but one of them is Walter Mumquist and Jeff Voldrich battling for that third back memories for me. That happened in the late 70s, early 80s, both incredible jumpers. Walter still has a good connection to Harrisville, and he jumped there many times. He had two wings on the trophy, what we call wings on the trophy. You need to win it 3 times. And he was favored to win the third. And Jeff Voldrich, who was only 18 years old, kind of came out of nowhere. He was out from Lake Placid, and he upset Walter Mumquist. And then they came back 2 or 3 years after that. Jeff won again, but never won a third time. And Walter never won a third time. So they both joined those two both joined 6 people who won twice, but never retired the trophy. And I'll tell you, anyone who thinks it's easy to retire that trophy, even the best of the best, it's never easy, because there's always somebody that can come in, and you've got to have 2 good jumps. And if you just a little late on the takeoff or slip on the landing, you're done. The style points. And I mean, Mazzy Barber, one of the best U.S. jumpers ever, he won twice, but he never got that 3rd. So
Really?
that's one of my favorite memories, is those two having a friendly rivalry. There's been a lot of memories. Even the last jump we had where got retired again, the trophy. And Vladimir winning in 2000 was pretty exciting too. So
That was
but yeah,
Vladimir
54 years.
from the Ukraine. Yeah.
Yeah. And he became a fan favorite. He was at the top of the hill on his last jump before he retired it with his cell phone through the microphone that you were prompting, and the crowd was going crazy, and it was really fun. Really fun.
You know, I have the memory too of doing that with Eddie the Eagle one year that he was there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Eddie the Eagle was a lot of fun, but I feel a little bit bad sometimes for the good jumpers who kind of got overshadowed by Eddie. He wasn't a great jumper, but he was a great entertainer, put it that way.
Yeah. Of course, Eddie, a Disney movie has been made about his jumping experiences, and he jumped in 1988 at the Calgary Games. Probably, as they say, the most famous last place finisher ever, because he did get a lot of exposure. Todd, do you have a memory of Harrisville that is particularly salient now? I mean, is you a great memory that moves you?
Like Dana said, there's so many good ones, and in my short tenure of being around here, but probably my most memorable moment there was when I was 14 years old and jumped the first big hill that I ever jumped at Harrisville. That was the first time I moved up from skiing a 40-meter hill to skiing a Olympic size ski jump like that. And it was awesome because it was a hometown crowd, and first time I ever went over 220 feet or something like that. So it was exhilarating. I had only been jumping for about 3 years, and was doing a lot of training up in Lake Placid, and finally got the go ahead from my coaches to jump a big hill. So,
and you were on the Eastern Junior team.
Yep, I was on the Eastern Junior team that year and many years after that, till about 1992, I think was the last year. So.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit, because you also oversee the Harrisville Junior program. Everybody has said here it's reinvigorated, if you will, and I think that's fantastic, because we need the pipeline for jumpers to come up to eventually jump on the big hill, Harrisville. How goes the junior program, Todd?
Yeah, excellent. It's been such an honor to reinvigorate this program. It was, defunct for so many years, probably 10 or 15 years. The jump was unusable, and we really didn't have a lot of interest in anyone coaching or anybody jumping. So, it was one of those things that just needed to be done. It was there's so much rich heritage in Brattleboro for ski jumping, and it was just, we have this great event every year, but we don't have our own jumpers anymore. Spencer's the last jumper who came up through the ranks and is jumping big hills. So I, found Harrisville committee was generous to donate money. We found some other sponsors to help donate money to help rebuild the jump. Tons of different sponsors all around town. And there's such a long list. I don't want to list them because I'm going to forget somebody, but so many different people, contractors, building supply places, just so much generosity in the community that made it happen. And so we rebuilt the jump, and we now have an 18-meter jump, and then we have a little 7-ish meter jump off to the side. So you have that little 7-ish meter jump where it's really approachable for kids on downhill skis to come over from Memorial Park and try it out. And then as they get going, they get the rhythm going, and then they move up to the 18-meter jump, and then so on and so forth. So we're starting to groom some new jumpers. The first year I had about 10 jumpers, and then the second year I had about 12. And then COVID hit, and we couldn't have our New Hampshire teammates come over and practice with us. So they went and actually practiced up at Proctor Academy. And we had our core 5 or 6 kids from the Brattleboro area over here. So now it's opened up, and we're I did a recruiting event at the Guilford Fair this year, and I had a dozen kids sign up for the team. And with Spencer Knickerbocker, we're gonna try and do a little more of a collaborative effort, and do a presentation with his kids up at Marlboro, see if there's any interest there in having some of those cross-country skiers come try jumping, and vice versa. If I don't, if some of my kids who are jumping now aren't cross-country skiers, introducing them to Spencer and having them go up there and maybe join the Bill Koch League. So some great things happening here in Brattleboro, reinvigorating that junior program.
That's great, Todd, and really congratulations to you and the people that are working on it. Spencer, we talk about progression and jumping. I mean, when I'm down at the hill, sometimes people say, how do they do it? I would never do that. But the truth of the matter is, and I try to educate them, is that you don't start at Harrisville. So Spencer, that progression and the junior program is so important for the future, because we want and need local jumpers to jump on the hill.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a statistic I like to throw out to people when they talk about how dangerous ski jumping seems is that ski jumping is, statistically speaking, the second most safest ski sport, right behind cross-country skiing, ahead of downhill skiing. And that's because the progression is safe, and it's slow, and it's controlled by coaches, athletes. It might be different from back in the day. I think jumpers were kind of pushed to get to bigger hills on a faster progression. Now it's slowed down quite a bit more to, develop a healthy approach to the sport. So, programs, ski jumping, it's a worldwide sport, it's an Olympic sport, but it starts at the grassroots level. And to do that, you need programs like Todd's that get kids introduced to the sport. And I think a lot due to the pandemic, there's a lot more people excited and interested in outdoor recreation, and especially skiing in the Northeast. And I think now is the time that Todd and I really try to engage a lot of the community and to seeing that this is cross-country skiing and ski jumping are lifelong sports that, it produces not only a special attitude towards the sport, but healthy skills that you can carry out through life. And I think there's going to be a lot of momentum coming through the years, especially around skiing, because to the root of it, that's what we do in southern Vermont. Thinking back to the Putney School and John Caldwell, cross-country skiing is what people do, and ski jumping was what people did in Brattleboro. And I think we're on the cusp of a resurgence, and that progression from starting at a junior program, things start seem more tangible when you can see this event at Harrisville as a junior jumper at the Memorial Park, and you see what committing to the sport can bring you. So it's exciting.
No, that's good. Thank you for that, Spencer. To Dana, and shortly we're going to start in about 5 minutes. We're going to start taking your questions. Dana, Harrisville is well known by the jumpers. It's also been well known by the media. Over the years, Harrisville has had publicity from journalists and attracted a lot of great publicity. Can you look back and just give us a little idea of what the coverage was like over the years?
Harrisville's always been covered very well. I remember looking at newspaper clippings back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Boston papers, Springfield, Mass, Lake Placid. The New York Times, the New York Post would do stories about Art Devlin and Mezzie Barber. But not too long ago, we had Stan Grossfield, who's a Pulitzer Prize photographer, come up from the Boston Globe. And mostly his story was about the women, because Harrisville's always been a forerunner for women jumpers. We had a couple in the 80s. And one thing we discovered was we had one in 1922. Fred Harris's sister was a ski jumper. So we've discovered some things. Yeah, and it's funny, I need to bring up, because Spencer's still jumping, we've had a perfect record. Every time the Harrisville jump has happened, we've had at least one local jumper since the beginning. And the last 2 years, we've had one. And it's been Spencer, so you can't quit now, Spencer.
No pressure, Spencer. No pressure.
Yeah,
So
no, I don't think Dana and all of you, there's another town that I know of that has a sign, welcome to Brattleboro, with a ski jumper on it. It really is a community that has simply embraced it, and Harrisville is part of the fabric of all of this.
Yeah, when I was a kid, people jumped. I know a lot of kids play hockey now, and that's great. But jumping was what happened, and everybody would strap on their regular skis and go out in their backyard and make their own jump and jump on it. And people like Alan Sargent, I can't say enough about Alan Sargent. His basement was filled with boots and skis, and you kind of knew where you stood when he called you up and said, come on down and pick out your skis and your boots. And in the 70s, 40 junior jumpers, and the most ever Brattleboro jumpers at Harrisville. Twice we've had 20 Brattleboro jumpers jump at Harrisville. One was 1992, where Todd mentioned, which was a national championship. So there's been some times when, again, 30 to 40 junior jumpers. And when that happens, you're going to end up getting 10 people who end up jumping Harrisville. So really important that the tradition continues for me. It's really dear to my heart, to the history and the connection to this community. So we appreciate what Todd's doing.
Thank you, Dana, for that. Todd, can you speak from your own personal experience about Brattleboro and ski jumping as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of many people who I talk to in the town who live around here who don't know about Harrisville or don't have a relative that have jumped at Harrisville. It's such an embedded piece of this community. And I was introduced to the sport from my stepfather, David Harris. No relation to Fred, but he had been jumping for years and years, 20, 30 years, and was a part of the junior program in Brattleboro and skied the old Latches Hill that's over on Exit 1. And he introduced me to the sport, and I had been downhill skiing for a year, and he said, "Hey, you want to try ski jumping?" Sure, why not? I'm 10 years old,
Yeah.
So it's a huge part of the community, and you walk around anywhere in town and talk to people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I love the ski jump," or "Yeah, my uncle was a jumper back in the 40s," or whoever. It's an amazing sport and an amazing event to be a part of. Very, very proud of being part of the junior program and getting that started again, and then also being part of the Harrisville committee. Really, really fortunate and humbled by those responsibilities.
All right. Well, we'll go to some questions here right now. Try to get to some of them. Walter Mumquist is listening. Hello, Walter, a two-time Olympian himself from Post Mills, Vermont. Harrisville is the location of a fabulous annual event. Clearly, it has grown and sustained the sport for decades in Brattleboro. So he asks, what has the Harrisville programs added to the Eastern Division as the athlete population and program growth? Can you speak to that, Todd, maybe?
Yeah, can you repeat that? I missed part of that.
Well, he says, what has Harrisville programs added to the Eastern Division as for athlete population and program growth?
Yeah, I mean, in the immediate time frame, not a whole lot. I mean, we do have the junior program kids that jump at some of the regional tournaments. I'm not sure if he means as a whole to Eastern junior jumping.
I think so. Yeah.
Over the years, we've always had kids that are jumping on the Eastern circuit, and then again, I think a lot of our kids always jumped in the junior national championships and junior national tournaments, junior Olympics it was called in my day.
Right.
And you know, one of our local guys, David Austin, was a junior Olympic champion. So you know, in terms of specific numbers, I couldn't put a number on any of those years, but we've always had kids in that Eastern program jumping.
Right. Okay, excellent. Maybe for Spencer on this, tell us a bit about the state of women's jumping. Are there any well-respected women jumpers from Vermont?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not sure who asked that. I could check the Q&A, but you know, we had one woman jumper jumping at the international level, and she was a Nordic combined athlete, Tara Garrity Moats from Fairleigh, Vermont. But you know, to be honest, there's a very large gap in participation of women in ski jumping. The optimist in me is looking at, you know, junior programs and the USA Nordic development pipeline, and the support that they're giving to their women's team is equal to that of the men's now. So I think women can see a very clear pathway towards success in the sport, which, to be honest, before women's ski jumping was added to the Olympic agenda, I think 2014 was the first year, there wasn't really a long-term pathway for women. You know, they had some World Cups, very few World Cups compared to men. And I think as our society shifts, we're starting to see that change on the highest level. And for that to change on the regional, local level, those changes have to take place at the highest point first. And I think we're seeing that. So I'm hopeful that we're seeing a shift, and we're going to start seeing a lot more participation from women who rightly deserve the same opportunities as men. And I think as a committee of Harrisville, something that we're hoping to launch, and I hope we do, is the Wing Ski Trophy has traditionally been for the men's category. And I think going forward, to promote equity in the sport, we're going to be having a women's version of that. You know, women deserve the same stage that men do, no doubt. And I think women need, if anything, increased support to get there.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Rick Hale writes, and this is one for Dana, where would one look for photographs of the competition, specifically in the 70s?
There's going to be a lot of us.
He jumped at Harrisville.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of them in the new book. So over the years, I've probably collected for 25 years, different ways, but now it's mostly eBay. Sometimes you find an old jumper who has a photo they want to share with you and that sort of thing. But if you're thinking about collecting old photographs, that's really the way to go, is eBay. But if you want just to have some for your archives, the book, again, is going to have almost 200 photographs, 120 pages, captions on all the photographs, a lot of research to find out what year the photographs were and who was in them to the project. But we really really was important to us to make sure things. But you can also just Google ski jump photos, and there's quite a few on there. So, but the book is going to be great.
All right, and I'll keep with you on one comment that we certainly should mention the great BOC, Brattleboro Outing Club, jumping star Hugh Barber,
Absolutely.
who retired a wing trophy in 1974.
That's right. Yeah, there's only been 2 Brattleboro natives ever to win at Harrisville, and one was Eric Merrill, who won 1 year, and Hugh Barber, Barber won twice also. I mentioned him. But one of the things we did when we were doing the book, I did as a kind of took it on, was I made a directory of everybody who's ever jumped in Brattleboro, and there's 256 jumpers since in the 100 years that have jumped in Brattleboro. So that's about just over 2 per year. So the years we had 20 were pretty good years. So.
All right. Well, thank you. John writes, and this is one for Todd, I think, with the surface being man-made snow that is a number of feet deep, is it more difficult to groom to a consistently smooth slope than a modern jump like Lake Placid? How does this affect the jumpers?
Lake Placid does it the same way we do. They make tons of snow, man-made snow, and then they groom it with their winch cats. Those winch cats make short work of that snow. It's incredible what they do. And they just, take those, we just make piles in the middle of the hill, and they just take those piles and spread it out nice and even, groom them. We have grade boards along the side of the landing hill. So if you look at the landing hill, during the summertime, you'll see the 2x6 or 2x8s that run along the deflector boards all the way up towards the ground level, and that snow is spread all over with the groomer, and the groomer knows to bring it to that depth and that level, and then all the rest, if there's any extra, out to the outrun and out to the end. So was there a second part to that question too? I can't remember.
Well, he said, how does this affect the jumpers? But
yeah, it's so it makes a smoother surface. It's a better packed surface. It's more stable. It tends to hold up better in warmer climate. Natural snow melts faster, I think, and it sets up harder. You want a hard surface on that landing hill. It's a lot safer than a soft surface. If you have soft snow on the landing hill, it just creates a bigger opportunity for an athlete that's falling to, dig a shoulder in or a knee in and really injure themselves. If they're falling and landing on a hard surface, they're just going to slide right out and be fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. Chris Ryan Clark, my friend, writes, can the esteemed panelists, thank you for that, talk a little bit about the scope of the recent hill rebuild and the community effort to make that happen. Did that reinvigorate how the community braces the hill and the tournament? Dana, should we go to you for that?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that happened when we did the rebuild was we got a lot of publicity. We got a lot of new people that had never been to the jump before. And I'd like to give Chris a plug too. She's one of our graphic designers for the ski jump. So she's done a great job, and really appreciate that. But yeah, no, I think we've got a second wind. I started looking at some of the attendance before this jump closed down, and we had some jumps where there was only like 1,200 people, spectators at the jump. And now, again, we're at the 5,000 spectator mark, which is a great size crowd. And the jumpers love it. They can hear them. They can feel the energy. Last jump when Chris Lamb almost retired the trophy, we've kind of adopted him as a local. That's the loudest I've ever heard the crowd in my life when he jumped his last jump. So it's back. Jumping's back. And I think, to be honest with you, I think women are going to save the sport. They have brought the sport to another level. So really exciting.
Thank you for that. Al Perry writes, my dad was a teammate of Art Devlin at Syracuse University. What was Art's record at Harris Hill from Al Perry? Do you know, can you answer that? You may not have that information at your fingertips.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he won 5 times, which is the most ever. It may be 6. I'd have to go back and look, but he holds the record. When you think about the Torgel, Art Tokel, and Art Devlin, between those guys, they won 10 or 11 times, so 10% of the time since the jump's been around. But yeah, I think Art won 5 times. And again, he was a great jumper, and I think if it hadn't been for Art Tokel that one year, he would have retired the trophy earlier.
All right. Well, thank you, Al Perry, for that. And Dana, this question I think I'll send Spencer's way. And I realize, Spencer, you could talk a long time on this, but we've got a few more questions, and our time is short now. But anonymous attendee writes, is there a unique personality type among jumpers? Spencer, to you.
Oh man, that's a great question. I think the personality type to people that are drawn to ski jumping are, I was hooked on the sport because I grew up going to Harris Hill and watching it, and I just thought it was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked cool. I wanted big skis like the jumpers had. But I think as you get into the sport, the personality type are people that are able to compose themselves and stay very calm. And I think, you get eccentric characters like Eddie the Eagle, and, certainly people that seem more eccentric, but when you're in the mentality of preparing to go down the ski jump, I think what's common amongst everyone competing at Harris Hill or on those size jumps is that ability that these are people that can kind of zone off and get, mentally prepared to execute what they're going to do without being scared or nervous, and really focus on the process. So I guess you could say in quick, people that are process oriented are probably the type of people that participate in ski jumping.
Okay, thank you for that. Our friend Mel Martin writes, and I'd be interested, this has got to go to Dana. How many countries have jumped at Harris Hill over the years? Do you know?
Well, not without looking, but I would guess 12. That's my guess, because the year we had the FIS event, we had 6 different countries, and a couple of them had never jumped here before. We had a Japanese jumper for the first time, but I would say 12 different countries. That would be my guess.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I did look it up. Art Devlin won 6 times. I looked it up.
Oh, good. Rick Hale wants us to know, did you know that Harris Hill was the first place where hands back on the in run was first employed, and that Mezzi Barber said, that's now how it's done. Interesting comment there. Another person writes, and maybe we could go to Dana again in this. Tell us again how to find out about events at Harris Hill this year. And thanks. It's been very interesting. How do people find out more? Do they go to a website, Dana?
Yeah. HarrisHillSkiJump.com. And it's going to have ticket information. Tickets are not for sale yet, but they will be usually in December. So, and it's going to be everywhere. But that's your best spot to get pre-order tickets. We sell them all over town, Chamber of Commerce, bunch of stores. But if you want to pre-order them online, just go to our website and it'll direct you. The tickets and the book, both ways you can do that. So give us another month. And
Dana, give us the dates, please.
The date of the jump?
Yeah, the weekend of the jump. Yeah. When is that?
Okay, so we always try to have it President's Weekend. And this year it's February 19th and 20th, but I'm not sure if this is public knowledge yet, but Friday night, there's going to be some stuff going on. So Friday, the 18th, set that aside, and the 19th and the 20th. And you can buy tickets for just one day. So you can buy Saturday, or Sunday, or both, but it's separate admissions. So stay tuned for some stuff that might be happening that's never happened before.
But you can't announce
excited.
it yet, right? Okay, but there's going to be a lot more festivities than ever, I think.
And anyone out there that's a past Brattleboro jumper, we'd like to hear from you because we want to honor past Brattleboro jumpers on the outrun of the jump before Saturday's jump. So if you jump Harris Hill and you're a Brattleboro ex-jumper, and there's a lot of you out there, let us know. We'd like to get in touch with you.
Okay, for Todd from Skip, I competed on the Nordic Vermont Academy ski team in the early 60s under that was a legendary coach, Warren Chivers, himself an Olympian. We came to Harris Hill in 1962 to compete, so I know what a thrill it is to jump on that historic hill. Given that prep schools no longer have jumping programs, how much of an impact does that have on the continuation of the sport, Todd?
Yeah, I think that portion of it was integral in the volume of ski jumpers that we had in the country. The only state in the country now that has ski jumping within schools is New Hampshire, and they still have, a fairly vibrant high school program. No collegiate, just high school programs. And they have quite a few jumpers, 30, 40, 50 jumpers in the high school programs that compete in their high school tournaments, high school championships. But yeah, I think it's probably diminished the volume of jumpers. I don't know about the quality of jumpers because maybe the collegiate jumpers were kind of part-time jumpers who were just doing it for fun, which is fantastic. That's the whole part of it. If you're not having fun, why do it? But I think it has diminished the volume of jumpers, the number.
Okay.
Peter?
Marty Marr says.
Peter?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to interject on that very quickly. To put a positive spin on what Todd said, I think what we're seeing in the United States is a really large resurgence in club programs. I think in the past, maybe 10 years ago, I think the only pathway, and 10 years ago, this is talking about cross-country skiers. We could even go farther back to when ski jumping was part of prep school or NCAA. The pathway through the sport was through going to a ski academy or going to a NCAA program that had skiing. I think now, and for the better of the sport and increased participation, we're seeing a resurgence of the importance of club programs in producing athletes. A great example of that is Jesse Diggins, Olympic gold medalist, came up through the ranks of club programs in Minnesota. And now US Ski Team, USA Nordic realizes that, going to a ski academy or a private school to get better at skiing is not affordable to people. And I think we're seeing the resurgence of these clubs come back like Brattleboro was in the 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about that shift.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And Rick writes, I think, saying the technique that he was speaking of with Mezzy Barber back in that day, well, it's changed considerably, Dana, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yeah. It's gone from hands behind you to hands in front of you to the V formation. And I think each improvement they've made in style has made it a safer sport. They realize with the V formation how much longer it holds them up in the air, and it took them a while to come around to that, but now when I see old photos of people jumping, it just doesn't look natural. The V formation to me looks the most natural, and it's been around for about 30 years. So we talk about that in the book. We talk about the names of the style and the 6 different styles over the 100 years. Really interesting stuff. And I think people get a kick out of that.
Well, indeed. And a final a comment from Marty Marr. My uncle, Jim Hannigan, is 93 years old, and he won the Brattleboro jump on Harrisville on February 13th, 1955. And he is on the Zoom call now. His home hill was Bear Mountain, New York. So, Jim, best wishes to you. And that is an incredible accomplishment. Well, those are the questions that we can get to right now in the program. And before I turn it back to Abby, I want to thank all of you guys for being with us. Really informative. How about just one final very quick comment about, why people should come to Harrisville and this very special celebration this year, starting with Spencer.
Oh, man. Harrisville is one of the coolest outdoor events probably in the Northeast. If you can spare a few hours on either Saturday or Sunday or both, or Friday, come check that event out. Bring your kids. It's an awesome event. It's the best of the sport. And we hope to see you there. And I hope to be on skis there myself, maybe one more year.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. And quickly to Dana.
Well, I think if you want to be part of history, I think this is the year to be there. And I think, it took a lot of work to get to 100 years, a lot of spectators, a lot of volunteers, and a lot of hard work. And I think to be there, to be part of history is pretty special. Buy some swag while you're there,
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Red Sox winning the World Series in 2004. You got to be there, right?
Absolutely. Thank you. And Todd, finally to you.
Yeah, I just got to echo that. It's just such an amazing event. Just every year, hands down, it's the best event anywhere around here. And guaranteed, if you come once, you're going to come every year. It's just that great of an event. The weather's usually pretty nice. February in Brattleboro is usually fairly warm. We got those spring days starting, and beer tent. We've got tons of great food trucks there, and just the atmosphere is just incredible. So we got some new things to come this year. We got some secrets that we'll be announcing shortly of some extras that are going to be happening this year. So
I can't wait to hear about it.
The place to be.
Thank you all very much.
If anybody wants to volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're celebrating the 100th birthday of Harrisville with another great event coming up, a celebration. We'd love to invite you all down there. As Dana said, be part of history. There has been so much history at the Hill. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. So I thank you guys. And Abby, this has been really fun. And we've learned a lot and touched on some, but certainly not all of the history of Harrisville, but hope we give you a little taste of it, and that exciting book is coming out. So I'll send it back to Abby, and to thank you guys again for your time. Abby?
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, Dana, Todd, and Spencer. That was wonderful. I am definitely looking forward to attending those events. And I would be shocked if those in the audience aren't inspired to make the trip to Brattleboro as well. And everyone in the audience, thank you for joining us tonight. Please don't forget to make those donations, and a new pair of Darn Tough socks could be yours. I also want to mention that we're in the midst of some exciting things at the museum. We have an online auction happening right now, and it will be open until October 27th. We have skis, snowboards, vintage items, lodging packages, gift cards, and a slew of other items. There are some great gifts in there, so consider doing some holiday shopping. I also want to thank Chuck and Jan Perkins for sponsoring the auction so that all of the funds raised at that event go directly to the museum. You may have also noticed that the museum is currently closed and will remain closed until November 26th, and that's because we're busy preparing the new exhibit, The Art of the Graphic. So mark your calendars to come check that out, and also come check out what will be our fully stocked gift shop. If maybe we're a bit far away from you, our gift shop is also online. And remember to follow us on social media. Continue opening our e-newsletters. It's a busy and exciting time of year for us, and that's the best way to stay up to date on all of the happenings. And just for your reference, this event was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel next week. If you want to watch it again, if you want to share it with friends and family. And that's it. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and have a lovely evening.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Peter.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Peter.